climbed the hardest thing in the world tomorrow, like boulder, sport route, free solo, whatever it was, if it weren't a film or a mellow video or even an iPhone video on Instagram, would it even matter? Like, even if there were 10 people there watching who could all vouch for its authenticity, like, would it matter?
It's the classic, if a tree falls in the wood and nobody hears, does it matter? Did it actually fall down? That's the question.
I think it's pretty true to say that it probably would be noted, but it would never sort of achieve any sort of wide acclaim. You kind of need media attached to anything now. And I guess, does it make you feel nostalgic? Like, I think about Peter Croft. When he soloed Astroman in Yosemite Valley, that was like the shot heard around the climbing world. I mean, obviously it didn't go into mainstream media, but for like climbing, everyone was like, what the heck just happened? And there wasn't even a photo attached to it. Like, do you ever wish we could go back to that time?
I don't necessarily wish we could go back, but I do think, I mean, in some ways that's sort of reminiscent of news in the country now. You know, it's just that when people used to get all their climbing news from one or two sources, it was just print, it was much slower. It's like now there's just such a flood of climbing content out there that, you know, if something isn't documented well, it just gets lost in the, you know, it's like, who's ever going to hear about it otherwise?
You know, it's easy to have a nostalgia over something like that, but I think about it as like, this is actually kind of awesome as both like someone who loves still climbing and as a fan of it. I feel like the influx of media, it's kind of cool because we do get to watch history unfold. Like, it just didn't happen that way 20 years ago when we started out climbing, right?
Totally.
And I feel like sports kind of almost need that. Like, they need the ability for someone to have like a seat at a stadium.
Certainly mainstream sports benefit from having slow-mo and multiple angles and like, you know, cable cams, you know, like so many of our friends work on cable cam, like rigging the cameras that zip over the field so you can see all the players like doing their thing. And so, I mean, in a way, I think for a sport to achieve sort of mainstream popularity, it has to be accessible and viewable in that way. And so, I mean, I think climbing is just slowly easing that direction, you know, for better or for worse.
There's one person who has arguably been there for more important moments in climbing history than anyone else.
That's totally true. Yeah, Brett Lowell. What a dude. Brett Lowell has been a climber his whole life. He's been a cinematographer for most of his life. And he has been there just every step along the way. So, I mean, if you've ever watched Rampage on VHS, which is one of the original climbing films, if you've seen The Dawn Wall on freaking big screen in theaters, if you've binge watched the Climb, the HBO show, I mean, he shot all of those. He's been there for all those kinds of moments and so many more. I mean, she shot all the dosages.
We're leaving a bunch out.
Yeah, we're leaving like, you know, most of the things out. But I mean, he's shot so many cutting edge ascents. It's insane.
Through time, the budgets have evolved, but at the heart, the job has remained the same. You get the shot, you offer encouragement, and most of all, you try to stay safe. And whether that was making a VHS film in a broken down RV with buddies or working with the most technologically sophisticated cameras on the planet, Brett Lowell keeps the adventure pretty chill.
Super chill. That's Brett Lowell. I'm Alex Honnold.
I'm Fitz Cahall.
This is Climbing Gold. Okay, so let's just start. Who are you and what do you do?
I'm Brett Lowell. I've been making climbing films for almost 30 years now. I'm a cameraman, rock climber, father. We started out, Josh, my brother, and I, making more skater-style climbing films, you know, less story-oriented, more just hard climbing to good beats and rad climbers going out and experiencing new places, trying to show FAs.
So you're saying you guys were shooting mellow back before mellow existed?
Kind of. Yeah. We would have like mini DV cameras up on monopod poles, just filming bouldering.
How does it feel seeing that all come back? Because now all the kids are using the same cameras again. They're all using they all call them the dad cam, the little camcorders and stuff, and like weird. I'm like, well, why are you guys using these cameras? They look like something you found on eBay. It's like trash, but it's all coming back.
Yeah, to see those kind of cycles happen where like all of a sudden people want it to look crappy again. I actually remember, so my father was a cinematographer, and I remember like a similar thing back in the day where he was like, there's all this effort to try to make video digital look like film again, and he was like, back in the day when we were shooting film, we were trying to get rid of all those spots and all the the mushiness and the softness that film created. He was like so boggled that everybody was trying to like go back to what they were trying to work past. So there's a little bit of that happening again, but it's cool to see. Like, it's also cool to see people mimicking some of the styles that we used back in the day and just getting out and shooting stuff. Anyone can go out and shoot now, and iPhones look amazing. It makes it harder for me to go out and just like spend endless time trying to document a first descent, because it's like there's always someone there that can capture it, and people care less, I think, now about the quality, and they care more about just like seeing some rad uncut stuff. So I don't know, the landscape's changed a little.
So you're saying your main competition now is some random tripod that somebody puts their phone on while they send when they're doing solo sessions, like out on the...
Pretty much. I mean, one of the comments I hear all the time from people is like, oh man, I'd love to see you guys go back to your roots a little bit and shoot some more Doshid style stuff. Like, not everything has to be some deep story. I just want to watch something to get psyched up and go out climb. But that motto doesn't necessarily work for us anymore, because anybody can go out and shoot that. Like, you know what I mean? It's hard to justify paying for that footage.
Totally. When you get it for free on Instagram, like everyone's posting that themselves of like the thing they just did.
Yeah.
Like how did you start as a climbing cinematographer before that was even a thing? Like how did you first film your first climbing?
As I said, my father was a cinematographer, but I never thought that I would follow in those footsteps. My brother Josh and I started climbing. He's 7 years older than I am. So I was actually 7 when I started climbing.
You were 7 when you started climbing?
Yep, 1987.
Man, that's so funny.
When bouldering kind of started hitting the scene in the gunks, I was friends with Obi Carrion and Ivan Green, and we started kind of developing a lot of the bouldering in the gunks. Josh was out at Colorado College.
And you were a teenager then?
Yeah, I was in high school. Any chance I could get, I was driving up to New Paltz to go boulder and climb with those guys. Josh came back from college and started joining us, and then he tweaked his finger really bad. And so instead of coming out and bouldering with us, he just brought a camera and started kind of documenting the first descents and cut it together. That was called Big Up Bouldering in the Gunks, which is where the Big Up Productions name came from. And that was, mostly just Josh. I was just climbing and held the camera here and there for him. But yeah, we showed it at Rock and Snow in New Paltz, the local climbing shop, and people were like, whoa, that's actually pretty good. You guys should take that more seriously. And so Josh made plans for his next film, which was Free Waco, and I was still in high school. So I went out during my spring and winter break to help him shoot and just to boulder with the crew. That's when we met Sharma, and Obi and Sharma became like really close friends. And that film eventually led to us doing The Rampage, which was like kind of the first big cult film where people just like would hear things like, I watched it 135 times.
Yeah, so I watched Rampage a ton because that was just out when I was starting to climb.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, come on, Chris. Come on. Ah! Did it break?
Yeah, it's gone. It's right where it started last night.
It's June,
Staying up again.
and it's freezing and wet. And every day we're just hanging out in the RV, stepping on each other's toes.
Maybe the whole roof is just...
I mean, let's talk about Rampage, because I feel like nowadays people don't necessarily know what that is anymore, just because I feel like most climbers have started climbing in the last several years in gyms, and VHS climbing films just aren't really a thing anymore. The whole VHS format's not really a thing. But so what was Rampage, and what did you guys do? We'll be back with more after the break.
Alex, what's your favorite piece of North Face gear?
Right now, I think my go-to is this new sun hoodie, and it might be a sample, so I think it's coming out soon, but I've literally been wearing it every single day, and I actually do all my adventures now with no shirt on, just this sun hoodie, and it's so light and it's breathable. It's like it has a little half zip down the front. I actually told the athlete manager to send me 12 of them, basically, because I was like, I think I'm going to wear this for the rest of my life. Like, I think this is the reason I'm not going to get melanoma when I'm old. It's like, I'm going to wear this sun hoodie all the time, because I wear the hood up all the time, too, and it covers my whole face and neck and ears and everything.
Yeah. Does it ever, I mean, the attention to detail, the thoughtfulness in the products, does it always sort of amaze you, like what they come up with?
Well, I think the thing that amazes me is how it consistently gets better. And the thing is, 18 years ago, I got product and I was like, this is so great. I love this. And it's like, now I'm getting product and it's still great. And still, it's just, now it's a little bit lighter. Now it's a little more breathable. Like now it's, better weatherproofing, better materials. Like it's just the constant improvement, I think, has impressed me over time. Because jackets now are just way better than they were when I was a kid. The North Face has you covered. Discover gear designed to take you to new heights at thenorthface.com.
Dude, you ran up a mountain today, and I feel like it's like 1,000,000 degrees in Vegas.
Yeah, I did run up a mountain today. And actually, it's slightly less than 1,000,000 degrees today, but it is incredibly hot in the desert. And yeah, I have actually been drinking LMNT on every run. I've been trying to do one run a week and one mountain adventure week, and I always take LMNT in my water. I normally do 2 soft flasks, so 1 liter of water, and I split a pack of LMNT between the liter. And honestly, I think it's for the amount that I'm sweating in the desert, it makes a lot of sense. I think it's a smart way to make sure that I don't bonk.
What flavor did you put in your bottle?
I use any flavor really, but I have been using the lemonade salt this summer. It was a seasonal flavor, though now it's just been made permanent, which is great.
Because it's the best. It's the best one for sure.
Yeah, but honestly, I think it's nice to mix them up, because if you're using the same thing on every run, it starts to feel a little, I don't know. It's just nice to have different flavors. Get a free 8-count sample pack of LMNT's most popular drink mix flavors with any purchase at drinklmnt.com/climbinggold. That's drinklmnt.com/climbinggold. Find your favorite LMNT flavor or share it with a friend. So what was Rampage and what did you guys do?
My idea was to graduate high school, take a gap year, and climb. I worked for like 6 months to save up money to go to Mexico, and then I was going to go to school. And Josh was like, or we're going to buy an RV and do this next film, drive around the West Coast with Sharma and Obi and make a bouldering film. He's like, do you want to come and help me shoot it? And I was like, wow, that sounds better than college. And so I joined, and yeah, we spent, I forget how long, like 2 or 3 months driving around the West Coast, picked up Sharma in Santa Cruz in this crappy old RV that we bought for $4,000. Broke down multiple times on the trip, and we just drove around, and we'd contact local climbers, who were out there developing new stuff. We were trying to find, bouldering zones that weren't like totally known or tapped out. And everybody was so excited to have Sharma come to their zone that they've been developing, and so that was kind of the basis. And we just traveled around, going to these new zones and some old zones, and Sharma and Obi just putting up boulder problems, and that was kind of how we got on the map a little bit.
Not just got you guys on the map, but got Chris on the map to some extent, like Chris Sharma and like all these bouldering areas. I mean, it's hard to overstate the importance of that movie in some ways for the time. Also, for me, growing up, I'm from Sacramento, growing up in Northern California, like literally everywhere I went as a kid had some problem called the Sharma Ret or Sharma something, and a lot of those were from Rampage and from that whole era. And so it's like, I grew up with all these problems. It was like, oh, some random like unnamed Sharma Ret, and they're always like V10 or V11. You're just kind of like, oh, it's so hardcore. But it's like that was Rampage. It's like you just went and did everything.
Yeah, I mean, Chris was, in his kind of full-on hippie mode at that point. He wasn't grading or naming problems. He was just like going around, just crushing everything and moving on. And so, yeah, a lot of these areas, and even in the East Coast when he'd come and visit us and stuff, there's Sharma lines everywhere that he just never named. And we would try to I remember once in the Gunks he put one up, and we were all so intimidated by it because we're just like, it must be V12 or harder, like it's this crazy roof that Sharma was screaming on. Mm. And so we called it the Sharma roof, and Yeah, like years later, we were like, maybe we should try that thing. And it turned out to be like V8 and we all did it. And we were just like, oh, okay. There's like, sometimes you just got to get past the like,
The Chris Sharma mystique.
Exactly.
I mean, this is classic. It's funny because hearing your story, it just reminds me so much of when I talk about my climbing past and all that. We were like, well, who knows what's going to happen? I just, went climbing a lot and it sort of played out. But I think if someone were to look at your career now, looking backward, they'd be like, oh, you've worked on literally every biggest production in climbing. You shot The Climb, like you shot everything. You shot like tons of commercials, like practically everything in the climbing world you've had your fingers on in some way. But certainly back in the 90s, early 2000s, that was just not, it's like, how would you ever have guessed that the climbing world would progress that much in 25 years?
No, even now I'm still shocked. You know what I mean? Like I think my brain's still like in this early era of 25 years ago. And so I show up to some of the crags and things or like go on social media. I just forget sometimes that climbing has blown up so much.
Yeah, it's changed. Huh? You're like, whoa. But it's changed as a result of your work. I mean, in a lot of ways, like you did that.
I mean, maybe played a small role in it. It is interesting to me how like film just kind of solidifies and legitimizes things. You know what I mean? Like if there's a route that was in one of our films, it's like some classic or it's, everybody wants to try it. Something about having documented something that like all the routes that we filmed all of a sudden become these mega classics because people have watched them. And
you did make King Lines. I mean, when you call the film King Lines, you're sort of expecting people to be inspired by the routes. But so name some examples of that. Like, what are some routes that you filmed on that have become classics, or have or routes that have surprised you and how classic they've become? Because surely sometimes when you're filming someone doing a first ascent, you're like, this is some godforsaken cave in the middle of nowhere. Like, who's ever going to come here? And then 10 years later, you're like, this is one of the most famous routes in the world. Like, whoever would have guessed?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them are deserving of the
King Line moniker.
King Line moniker, and that's partly just because that's Chris's MO, and we've shot so much with Chris over the years. Like, he's not gonna go spend months projecting some shitty thing just because it's 15C. You know what I mean? Whereas maybe like Andre doesn't care about the aesthetic.
He's not like Adam Andre.
Like he'll just do it because it's hard and he has to. Whereas Chris, like he has to have all the pieces there. But yeah, there's definitely been, especially in the bouldering stuff, where I'm like, oh, that boulder problem randomly, like everybody wants to do, and it's like some shithole climbing out of a hole.
But what are some of the routes that when you were filming, like Espontas or something, if you're filming Deepwater Soloing in Majorca, surely when you were filming that, you're like, this is epic. Like people will try this someday. But then some of the things that you film, are you like, no one will ever do this because it just seems like too crazy? It's like when you're watching Chris do huge giants above the ocean, are you like, no one's going to do this. This is ridiculous.
Well, I used to think that way, I was just like, wow, this is so cool. We're going to document this thing that like no one will ever come to, or like out in the middle of nowhere in Majorca, it takes a boat and you have to be willing to dyno 8 feet, like 60 feet above the water. I was just like, it's good for Chris, but no one's ever going to repeat it. But that's actually, it's changed in the last few years, and people are starting to like, people have always chased Chris's roots and like wanted to repeat the classics that he's done. But it's cool to see that even in the Deepwater Soloing stuff and the more obscure stuff, that like people are finally getting out there and getting after it and repeating some of his hard Deepwater solo lines.
What were some of your favorite routes to film on? Like of these sort of classic routes, some of these King Lines, like shooting the Dawn Wall, you're like, incredible film, but like living on the wall for that long, is that sweet? You're like, it's kind of a pain in the ass. I mean, I guess you got to sleep with Tommy for like months, so that's fun.
We called it our, our big wall camping trip, because most of the time we just spent in the ledges baking in the sun till nighttime to climb. But yeah, I mean, some of the stuff is like that's amazing. That was an amazing experience that like I'll never forget and can't be replaced by anything. But there's also been times where you're just like suffering. We used to do more trying to capture actual first ascents. Back in the day, we were more, when I didn't need as much money to live, I could spend like 2 months with Chris trying to capture the first ascent. And one time I flew out to Spain to shoot Chris. He was like, I'm really close to sending what's going to be the hardest route. It's first round, first minute. It's a short, steep, powerful tufa route with pockets. And I went out there I set up a cable cam system where I could raise myself up the wall with a counterweight. And so every day we'd show up in Margalev, and I'd clip into this pulley system that I had set up with a haul bag full of rocks, and I would clamp my feet on this guideline rope, and I would just solo shoot Chris alongside him. And so, developed this whole system, and he was so close. He was falling off the crux move over and over again. We'd go out there 3 days, 4 days a week. And he was just like, dude, we got to do this. Like, it's a team effort, don't leave. So I called home and I'd be like, I'm extending, I'd talk to my wife, and she's like, that's all right. You got to capture the moment. And then all of a sudden Christmas came, and I was like calling home, and I was like, I'm sorry, but I think I have to miss Christmas. And
Did you skip Christmas for first year on First Minute?
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, I spent like a month and a half just like sleeping in Chris's guest room. And eventually he just like couldn't send it. Like, it was insane. And I had to go home, and like 3 weeks later he did it.
Dude.
That was the one that got away.
Well, or that's the one where you learn that you can all just edit it together and post, and it looks like you said. And you're kind of like, man, I don't know if I had to skip Christmas for that.
I think that might have been the turning point. When
Totally. How old were your kids then?
They were pretty young. I mean, probably 5 and 7.
Dude, how many nights do you think you spent on the Dawn Wall? Like, how much time do you spend on El Cap shooting with Tommy?
So it was like a 7-year process, and I think we did 2 or 3 pushes, like big pushes before the send. So I remember we did like a 10-day window on the wall where they were just working it. They weren't even close though to doing those first pitches back then. And we were just like, okay, let's see what happens. We filmed the first session with Tommy on there, just like, I'll never do this, but here's something for the future. Maybe some strong person will come along someday and do this route that I imagined. And then Tommy just like kept chipping away year after year, and getting closer and closer to the point where he's like, well, maybe I'll be that person. And enlisted Kevin, and yeah. And then one year we were up there for 7 nights, I think, and then got snowstormed off. That was pretty intense. Like it just started dumping on us, and we had to just retreat off the wall from our camp and just lowering haul bags off. I hadn't walked in 10 days. I remember I got to the talus below El Cap, and it was filled with snow and ice. And I had like a 70-pound haul bag on my back trying to get down the talus to the meadow. And I like hadn't even taken a step in 10 days. And I was just like, how does this work? But the send was a 19-day push.
And you were on the wall the whole time?
I came down 2 nights. I remember the second time I came down, it had already blown up in the media, and the meadow was just filled with live streaming. Every news station was down there. And Josh came, he's like, oh, can you go do an interview with these people and that people? And it was just so hectic. I just come off of like sitting in a portaledge in my underwear for 10 days straight. And like all of a sudden it's just media madness. And so when I went back up the next day, I told Tommy and Kevin, I was like, that's it. I'm not going back down. Like, it's madness on the ground.
That's the same reason that Tommy threw his phone off the wall bags. He's just like, this is too much. I can't deal. We'll be back with more after the break.
Do you ever feel like, you get done with a big day and your body's sort of vibrating? Do you ever have like a tough time getting settled before going to bed?
Yeah, definitely there are times when I'm kind of buzzing. Like actually sometimes after a really long drive, if I've been like driving really fast for a long time and then I park and I have to go to sleep, I'm sort of like, but I'm totally wired.
Have you tried AGZ?
I have tried AGZ. I've been using it for the last several months.
Does it help you settle out after you go play NASCAR?
I've actually used it the most when I'm traveling because I think it signals a nice evening routine for me that like now it's time to calm down, and this is kind of part of my routine to get into bed. With a combination of calming herbs, minerals, and adaptogens, AGZ is designed to help you wind down in the evening and wake up feeling refreshed. It comes in 3 flavors and can be enjoyed cold or hot. If you're ready to turn down the stress and focus on rest, head to drinkag1.com/climbinggold to get a free frother with your first purchase of AGZ. That's drinkag1.com/climbinggold. Thanks AG1 for sponsoring this episode.
All right. When you're climbing at the home gym, who controls the music?
Generally, whoever's in the gym first gets to seize the Bluetooth speaker and take over the music. But if I don't like it, then I'll take it away.
What triggers Judge Alex to be like, nope, not happening?
I mean, I try to be patient for anybody's music. I'm like, oh, they're here, they're listening to their thing. But ultimately, it's my garage, and I'm kind of like, I want to listen to rock. I basically always want to listen to rock. So I'm kind of like, no, I'll just put on what I want because it is my garage.
What kind of speaker do you use in the gym?
We use the Turtlebox Ranger, which has 3 days of battery life, and it's lightweight, durable, very robust. The kids have not broken it, and easy to connect to via Bluetooth. Designed for the outdoors, Turtlebox makes durable and portable Bluetooth speakers in a range of sizes so you can take your music anywhere. Find out more at turtleboxaudio.com.
Do you ever feel like, you get done with a big day and your body's sort of vibrating? Do you ever have like a tough time getting settled before going to bed?
Yeah, definitely there are times when I'm kind of buzzing. Like actually sometimes after a really long drive, if I've been like driving really fast for a long time and then I park and I have to go to sleep, I'm sort of like, but I'm totally wired.
Have you tried AGZ?
I have tried AGZ. I've been using it for the last several months.
Does it help you settle out after you go play NASCAR?
I've actually used it the most when I'm traveling because I think it signals a nice evening routine for me that like now it's time to calm down and this is kind of part of my routine to get into bed. With a combination of calming herbs, minerals, and adaptogens, AGZ is designed to help you wind down in the evening and wake up feeling refreshed. It comes in 3 flavors and can be enjoyed cold or hot. If you're ready to turn down the stress and focus on rest, head to drinkag1.com/climbinggold to get a free frother with your first purchase of AGZ. That's drinkag1.com/climbinggold. Thanks AG1 for sponsoring this episode. Man, it's funny because, I feel like I routinely get comments from people or like you routinely see comments on like YouTube things or on the film Free Solo or whatever. And people are like, but what about the camera guys? They're the real heroes. Cause people think that the camera guys like climbing the wall with the camera or whatever. But the thing, that's obviously not true because camera people always rappel in or ascend the ropes or do whatever. But on the other hand, camera people, like you are doing a whole different set of crazy things. Like talk about the big rig setup on the Dawn Wall, like with the totally insane, like a free hanging 2,000-foot rope, like out into the. Well, yeah. Explain that because, I mean, those are some of the more iconic shots from the Dawn Wall, but it took some like next level rigging, and it's pretty freaking scary. In some ways, like more dangerous than anything the climbers are doing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's kind of some of the most fun parts about this job is trying to like develop cool new systems to bring the footage to life or to add production value. And in Yosemite, of course, you're not allowed to fly drones or helicopters, which is a way we, commonly get these beautiful aerials and moving shots. So we were thinking about on the Dawn Wall, like how can we get away from the wall, right? You're always pinned to this vertical wall and just looking straight down. It's the same angle all the time. You can't really feel the exposure of the wall when you're that tight to it either. And so Josh and Tommy and I started kind of brainstorming, like how can we set up something cool to get away from the wall? We talked about having a special rope. We had a special rope made by one of Tommy's sponsors at the time, and it was a 2,800-foot rope. And it took up an entire like giant haul bag. And we had our riggers secure it in the talus, like way out from El Cap wall, and then jug it all the way up one end to Wino Tower, which is like
it's like 2,000 feet up or something.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, so you had a 2,000 or 2,800-foot rope. So you had it fixed one end on 2,000 feet up El Cap and the other end fixed a couple hundred feet away from the wall, like out in the forest, basically.
Yeah, and the talus below.
And it's just one clean rope just hanging like a diagonal away from
Here's
El
El Cap, and here's the rope just like running down.
And the rope weighs hundreds of pounds?
It's so heavy. Like, yeah, I don't know the weight.
I mean, it's so much
insane.
weight. Yeah, it's insane.
I mean, just jugging the one end up, I talked to the rigger. He said it was just like brutal. They had to do it in like sections.
Yeah, totally.
So then we have to bring in, like, imagine taking a bite of that rope and connecting it to the wall. And so just the weight alone of that kind of diagonal and the rope I would clip into that rope, and then I would also have my safety line, which is also above to Wino Tower, but separate.
And that would be like a 600-foot piece of rope or something.
600-foot piece of rope, static, that's like my safety line that's holding my weight.
Which, just to be clear, is not that safe, because if it all fell apart, I mean, yes, you'd still be connected to the wall, but it would be a complete disaster. Like, you would get squished like a fly, you know?
I don't even want to tell you, but yeah. When I finally jugged up to Wino Tower, there was a huge core shot in that rope. But anyway.
In the main one or in the safety line?
In my safety rope.
I mean, and this is another thing I think that people who have never been on big walls and have just watched some of these films, we're like, oh, you fix a line 600 feet up, but it's like, that's so far away. You're not like going up there and back all the time. It's like, it's hard work to get between these places. So once you fix the rope once, you're kind of like, well, I hope it's still good. But like a week later, it's still hanging there and it's blowing in the wind and it's rubbing on things. And you're like, I hope it's still good, but there's no safe way to check. It's not, anyway. So go on.
Tommy, actually, who's like obviously the man when it comes to big wall techniques and skills and rigging, he kind of figured out this way where we could clip into this rope and he would actually release me from the wall because there's so much tension. Just to get the rope back into the wall was so hard. And so each day, we set this up for the traverse pitches. It was amazing. And got this wide shot. You could see all the way down to the floor. But Tommy would be like, have to unclip me from the wall. And every day he'd be like, are you ready? And I'd be like, no. It was the most terrifying pendulum ever, right? We're at 1,500 feet.
And so you just swing like 100 feet out?
Yeah, like 50 feet. So as soon as he released me, I just start swinging away from El Cap. And we're 1,500 feet off the ground in the middle of El Cap. And yeah, it's just this weightless feeling pengying out. I got used to it after a while, but it was terrifying at first. And then the real crux of it all, I'd spend like hours, like 8-10 hours out there on my little bosun's chair, just like with crazy updraft, right? They're climbing at night. It was kind of insane. I just sit there. It's too hard to get back into the wall, so I just stay there until they were finished.
So you were just sitting in a little chair in the wind, 1,500 feet off the ground, suspended. That's so crazy.
And they were starting climbing at like 9 p.m. So, I'd be there from like 9 to 1 a.m. sometimes as they traded goes on the traverse pitches. And then they'd like sit and they'd have dinner on the portaledge and like, making tea and stuff. And I'd just be out there just like shivering like, that looks nice. Yeah.
Dude, and so then how do you get back in?
That was the crux. So it's this whole system of like, because basically at this point, you're all this weight, right? That's waiting on this guideline rope that goes down, and you have to somehow transfer that weight off and lower yourself back into the wall. And I can't even remember the system. It was pretty complicated, and Tommy figured it out. But one day I botched it. And actually, Tommy's dad was on the wall, and Josh, this was not on the send day, this was a previous trip, and I was way out there and I was trying to figure out the system, and all of a sudden I realized I was just holding that rope in my bare hand, and I'm 50 feet from the wall, and there's no way to get it back into the device. I'm just like getting more and more pumped as I'm just holding my weight from the penji. And I'm just like, oh my God, there's no way I could like get this into a gree at this point. Like I'm screwed. And so I just made the decision to let it go. And I just penjied 50 feet back into El Cap wall, right in between Josh and Tommy's dad. I just backsplatted, like, thwap! Just like full penji backsplat into the wall, and they were just like, "Whoa,
Did you
okay?"
have a backpack or anything? Were you okay?
I was okay somehow. Like I just hit so perfectly square into the wall that it was a hard hit, and like Josh and Tommy's dad were like, "Oh, like holy shit!" I remember Josh was just like, "Dude, if that was me, I would have broken every bone in my body." Like,
yeah, it's a good thing you're the more robust brother. Like, oh my God. I don't even know. I mean, you must have so many stories like that though from all these different shoots. I mean, because we were just on this crazy big wall shoot in Jordan doing stuff that's obviously not dangerous like that, but it was just so crazy. You know, it's such a weird shoot with like crazy cameras and like so much stuff on the wall, and the rigging was super complicated. And surely all the TV projects you've done, it's like there must be so many projects like that where you're just like in the middle of some crazy stuff. Is that part of what keeps the job interesting though? Is that every shoot has its own interesting thing. You just never know what you're going to get into.
Yeah, you got chefs cooking you meals, and then there's other times when you're like literally shooting into a Ziploc bag on a big wall for 19 days. So, you know, it's a whole spectrum of work.
But what are some of the hardest shoots you've done then, besides the Dawn Wall? I mean, and then how do you compare some of the physical difficulty to the psychological difficulty of being like, I wonder if this will ever actually happen, or like, will this person ever send? Like, because I mean, you're also filming with people who are pushing their own physical and mental limits. Like, I mean, I'm sure you've seen people breaking down and like fully going through their own process. You know, it's like when people just don't send and it casts them into full self-doubt. Like, I mean, how do you just kind of like stay quiet and keep rolling through all that kind of stuff?
I feel like one of the things that has allowed me to kind of keep doing this job, and I try to connect with the climbers, you know, and be not just like a random camera guy, but a climber and a friend. And I think that goes a long way in terms of like working with athletes who are pushing their limits, who are trying their hardest, who are stressed out about maybe not sending their big project and they only have a few days left. Or obviously the cameras and the media aspect, I think adds an element of pressure to a lot of these people. And so, I don't know, sometimes I really want to just be a fly on the wall and just not even exist, just let them be in their zone. And other times it's like you read the room and it's like, oh, they need some support and a bro right now.
They need a pat on the back.
Yeah. And so I think, you know, you just reading every scenario, actually it reminds me that question of a story with you.
Like, which one?
I was just filming actually with Jimmy, and we were on Liberty Cap, which I shot you on many years ago.
Oh, you shot that thing? I didn't remember that was you. That's classic.
That was me.
That's that footage. What's that from? From Valley Uprising. The footage of me soloing with the waterfall behind me and stuff.
Valley Uprising.
Yeah, I don't remember you filming. I don't remember it. Like, it was like a little 5'9" slab, wasn't it? It's like pretty easy. It was like, I just remember doing that as like a scenic, just whatever.
Well, that was the idea. We're going to go up, just get some like filler footage, pretty footage of you like swimming up some cracks with no rope. You know, it wasn't supposed to be anything intense or hard at all. And I think Cedar Wright sandbagged you. You had never been on the route before. And you were like, oh, Cedar said there's this cool route up on Liberty Cap. And so we went up there, and sure enough, there was like 3 pitches of 5'10" crack that you just like swam up. But then we got to the next pitch, and I was like standing over this little roof, and you had to do like 2 little roof moves, reach over, and you grab these tiny crimps, and you had to pull your foot over the roof onto this tiny smear. I mean, I remember it like it was yesterday because it was one of the most terrifying moments of my life. But you didn't want to commit to rocking over onto that smear. Like, it was obvious, like it could just blow and then that would be it. And so you down climbed under the roof, back to your little stance. Again, did that same thing, pulled the foot over, didn't quite trust it, down climbed. And on, I think, your 3rd time, you committed to the freaking toe smear and you just rocked over and mantled over this lip. And I was just like, I was 6 feet away from you, and the whole time I was like thinking what I was just talking about. I was like, should I let him be in his zone? Should I offer him a lifeline? I'm right here. I could literally like come over and just hug you and pull you off the wall. Like, all these thoughts are racing through my head. You know, I hadn't shot you free soloing too much at that point, and I was just like, what do I do? Like, don't distract him. Don't like let him figure this out, you know? But there was a bit of like, what, is this one of those moments where I need to like reach out and be like, hey, or do I just be a fly on the wall?
Yeah, and so were you just silent? It's crazy. I don't remember that at all. Like, literally, I only remember the footage from that. I'm like, that's so funny.
Wow. I tell this story all the time because it was fucking traumatizing. But so yeah, you pulled over finally, and I'm just there like trembling, and you actually got into this little stem, and you turned around backwards, so you're facing out in this stance that I don't even think I could figure out. And you turned to me and you said, "I'm sorry, Brett. That must have been terrifying for you." I'll never forget it. And I was just like, and then I handed you a harness, your harness, and you continued to stand in this precarious stem and put your harness on it.
That's funny. I don't remember the day at all, except for what's in the footage that they used in Valley Uprising, because it's such a classic, like, you know, the B-roll with the waterfall. And I was like, oh, it's so scenic. Man, I don't even remember the pitch.
Well, Pete was down with the tripod. He said he didn't even watch. He just pushed record and walked away.
Dude. Well, that is the stress of filming free soloing, is that it's like, it's so much, I mean, I assume it's much more stressful than actually doing the climbing. Because when you're doing it, you kind of know like how controlled you feel and whether or not it feels good. But when you're watching it, you're like, who knows what's happening? Like watching it is so stressful. Have you botched any like actual sends? Because there must be times when someone's like red pointing a sport route and you're still like clipped into the last draw or something. You can't get out of the way fast enough, or like you know, or like your cable cam setup is like trapping them before the anchor, like. Because it seems like just an odds game at some point. I mean, you must have had some send burns where you didn't realize you didn't have a card in the camera or something, or like you didn't have a battery, or, you know, it's like surely that stuff happens.
One of the close calls was for biography when Chris, you know, I was out there for weeks and weeks trying to capture the first ascent of biography realization back in 2001. And that was kind of like the first massive thing that I filmed that, you know, it was the hardest route, considered the hardest route at the time. You know, Chris and I had an agreement, whatever. One day he was like, I'm going to go up. You know, I was to shoot every burn. And he was going to send it at any moment. And at one point, I think I had like met a girl down in Sayus or something, and I was hanging out. And he was like, don't worry, I'm going up to the cliff, but I won't try it. I'm just going to hang out and like talk to people. And I was like, dude, don't. Just please, just don't get on the route. He's like, no, don't worry, you're fine. Come up whenever. And so I hike up like an hour later, and I remember I'm getting like the last switch back to get to Sayus, and I look up, and Chris is freaking on the route, and I'm just like, that bastard, like he promised he wouldn't try it without me, and he's like going for it, and I'm just like, I hope he falls. Like, oh my God, he better fall. Like this will be the worst thing ever if I miss. Like, I've been out here for 6 weeks. I filmed every attempt. If he sends right now, like, I'm so screwed.
But he fell.
He fell, and I was like, yes.
Nice. When you started filming with Chris on biography, did you think it was possible? Were you confident that he would do it?
I don't know if I was confident he would do it, but I could tell he had it in him, you know. Whereas with the Dawn Wall, I was kind of a little more skeptical, actually. I was kind of just like, these guys aren't even close. Like, up until that last attempt where they sent it, I was like, I don't know if we're like wasting time here.
That's so funny.
Yeah. And even on the send, like when Kevin was working the traverse pitch and he was stuck and everybody was watching and hoping he would get through, I was kind of like, I think he's like an inch too short for that span move. He'd get out there and he would reach, and just like his tips would just be like half an inch away, and then his foot would slip. And I was just like secretly telling Josh, I was like, I don't know I think he's a little too short.
After 7 years of working on the Dawn Wall, you're like, has anyone told him that he's just a little too short to do the move? Like, he just can't span the holds.
Yeah, but he proved me wrong.
Yeah, good for him. So, with all your filming, has it affected your own passion for climbing over the years? Because you're still putting up boulders, getting all psyched, doing your own climbing. You know, how has that changed your love of climbing, having to travel and film so much?
It's actually a good question. I've been thinking about this a lot recently because I am at this moment having a little like inspiration for climbing again and putting up boulders. And I think because I started shooting climbing so early on, and I had a family pretty young. I had kids when I was 26, my first child when I was 26. And so my focus quickly went to like providing and work and, getting as many shooting jobs as possible. And so climbing for myself kind of went to the back burner. And so, I've always climbed a little, and I've, every trip I take, I try to like squeak in a route or a boulder problem here or there just because I love it and I want to keep it alive. But I wasn't able to focus on my personal climbing for a long time.
But now that you're almost an empty nester, are you getting back to it? You're like...
Exactly. My kids are, teenagers and need a lot less. And also I'm just finding more motivation to just like, oh shit, I'm getting older. Like, let's do this while we can, sort of thing.
And what is it about the moment of ascend that has been so important for you over the years? Like, why is capturing the moment such a thing? Like, why is that worth missing Christmas? Like, just to have that one moment? Like, is it worth it?
It's a good question. I think when you watch someone climb something and you see the actual ascend and the emotion that goes along with that, it's way more powerful than, sometimes when we go back and recreate ascend that's already happened. You can tell the difference, and the emotion isn't the same. When the person's already done the route, they're not thinking about resting and their schedule and sending. You can really kind of work the shooting more. There's something special to be said for like being there in the moment, capturing those Sharma or Adamandra freakouts, that like you can't really recreate.
Thanks, Brett, for taking the time to sit down with us today and share your stories. By the way, this is Climbing Gold producer Evan, filling in for Fitz today on the credits. Hey, at Climbing Gold, we often get asked how people can support the show, and we really appreciate that. One of the best ways you can help is by leaving us a review on whatever podcast platform you use. We know that every podcast asks for this, but reviews are so important these days. So if you'd like to make a real impact and help more people discover the show, please take a minute to write a review on Apple, Spotify, or whatever podcast platform you use. Climbing Gold is brought to you by Duct Tape Them Beer. Alex Honnold is our host. Our production team includes the talents of Skylar Perwins, Marco Seiler Gonzalez, and me, Evan Phillips. Our creative director is Fitz Cahal. Today's music is by Fields, Brian Harvey, and Brendan O'Connell. Will Taylor handles our ad sales. Our executive producers are Jonathan Retzik and Ben Endy for RXR Sports, and Lacey Hendricks and Becca Cahal for Duct Tape Then Beer. Thanks for listening.